went to Washington to do what's hard. He went to do what is right. And now the lobbyists and the special interests are going after him, and the question I have for you is, when somebody like this has your back, do you have his back?
That was President Obama in Charlottesville, Virginia tonight, stumping for a Democratic congressman named Tom Perriello. Now, this is the kind of event at first blush would seem to make absolutely no sense whatsoever. Tom Perriello is in the fight for his political life right now as he tries to hold onto the House seat he won 2 years ago. The district he represents in Virginia is sort of one of these iconic swing districts. Even though Tom Perriello won there in 2008, the district actually went for John McCain. Congressman Perriello, like many congressional Democrats, is trailing in his race right now, but he's closed the gap significantly. A new poll out today shows Perriello trailing Republican State Senator Robert Hurt by just 8 points. That's down from a 26-point gap just 1 month ago. Given that reality, this is exactly the kind of district where the Democratic candidate, especially the incumbent Democrat, generally says to the president, "I love you, dude, but I cannot be caught dead with you right now. Whatever you do, just stay away." And yet, there's President Obama tonight standing alongside Tom Perriello at a campaign rally in Charlottesville, Virginia.
He didn't go to Washington to do what was easy, to do what was popular. He went to do what was right. Go, Tom, go. Go, Tom, go. Go, Tom, go. Go, Tom, go.
So what gives? Why does this endangered Democrat actually want to be seen with President Obama? Because the way that Tom Perriello won 2 years ago is the same way he's going to win this year if he manages to win. 2008, Tom Perriello won in part by cleaning up among young voters at the University of Virginia. He won by getting lots and lots of votes from African-American voters, and he won by cashing in on new voters. Those are the groups that ultimately put him over the top. Fast forward 2 years, and his path to victory this year is exactly the same. If Tom Perriello is going to win on Tuesday, it's going to be with the support of young voters, of African-American voters, and of new voters, the people who also tend to be most excited by a presidential visit. That was the recipe not just for Barack Obama's victory in 2008. It was a recipe for a lot of Democratic victories in tight congressional races in 2008 as well, like Tom Perriello in Virginia and Senator Kay Hagan in North Carolina. They won because those groups turned out in big, unprecedented numbers. The next 3 or 4 or 5 days of this election are going to be about one thing: repeating the amazing miracle that Democrats pulled off in 2008 in terms of bumping up the African-American turnout, which is already very high, bumping up youth turnout, and bumping up new voter turnout. It is not an easy task. Turnout among those constituencies all tend to be lower in midterm elections. So the question is now, can they pull it off again?
In the United States of America, anything is possible if we're willing to work for it, if we are willing to fight for it and believe in it. So I need you guys to keep on fighting. Tom needs you to keep on believing. In these last 4 days, I need you to knock on doors and make phone calls and talk to your neighbors and vote. Because if you're willing to step up to the plate, we won't just win this election. We won't just send Tom back to Congress, but we will rebuild this middle class, and we will put people back to work, and we will reclaim the American dream for future generations.
Joining us now is Mitch Stewart. He's the Executive Director of Organizing for America, which grew out of the 8 million volunteers from President Obama's 2008 campaign. Full disclosure, it is also my brother's employer. Mitch, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Good to have you here. So we talk about turnout, and it certainly was the case in 2008 that the Obama campaign was able to pull off this remarkable thing that hadn't been done before. What does that mean mechanically? How do you get that kind of turnout? Well, what does that look like?
And I think you mentioned this with Tom Perriello. And I have a unique perspective on this because I was the state director in Virginia in 2008, and Tom ended up winning by just over 700 votes. And he did that using the same sort of tactics that he learned prior to running for office, which is organizing. And Congressman Perriello's campaign right now is literally one of the best in the country. And it's not just an event with 10,000 people like we had in Charlottesville earlier today. He has an army of volunteers that are out there talking to their neighbors, talking to their friends. And as you talked about a pathway to victory, in a lot of instances it is increasing turnout with African Americans or youth voters or folks who have a less likelihood of participating in a midterm election, but it's also persuasion. And what we learned in 2008, what continues to be true now, is that having a neighbor, someone that you have a pre-existing relationship with, talk to you about why Tom Perriello is the best choice in the 5th Congressional District is the most powerful persuasion tool that you have. And he's got an army of folks that they're out there doing that every single day for him.
There's been a lot of talk, obviously, there's been kind of this mantra over the election about the enthusiasm gap, the fact that, you know, we've all seen the footage of Tea Parties, and obviously enthusiasm in 2008 was as high, certainly, as I've ever seen an election in my lifetime. Do you guys see the enthusiasm gap sort of turning up in your numbers, in the doors, in the calls, in volunteer recruitment? Do you see it narrowing? What can you tell me about that?
There are a couple different, I think, metrics that we're incredibly encouraged by. The first is early vote numbers that we're seeing across the country. If you were to believe the stated enthusiasm gap that we've been hearing about now for almost a year, you would expect that Republicans would be turning out in droves in early vote. And you know, not just in quote-unquote Republican states, but frankly across the country. And that hasn't happened in Nevada, in Washington, in California, in Illinois, in Maryland, North Carolina, Iowa, Ohio. States across the country right now, Democrats are outperforming Republicans. So the first thing that's incredibly important for folks to understand is that this enthusiasm gap has not materialized. And there's nothing to suggest at this point that it will on Election Day. You can make that argument, but frankly, there's nothing to back that up. And we believe at OFA that the best predictor of future performance is past performance. And so we're incredibly encouraged by that. The other thing that we're incredibly encouraged by right now is this huge enthusiasm that we're seeing within our own support universe. So volunteers coming into offices across the country, this rapid growth in voter contact, which is what Tom Perriello's campaign has done in Virginia so well, but we're having droves of volunteers come in. And in these past 6 months, Democrats across the country have made over 72 million door knocks and phone calls. And that's volunteer phone calls and door knocks. So it's something that we're incredibly encouraged by. Obviously, we have a lot of work to do, 4 days left, but we feel like we're certainly headed in the right direction. If there's an enthusiasm gap right now, it's certainly not on our side.
Let me ask you, final question here. OFA is sort of a strange hybrid. It hasn't really been tried before. You try to take this sort of unprecedented campaign, turn it into something that existed while the president was in office. There's been criticism from both sides. There's been criticism from Democratic congressmen who are not excited to get calls in the field from people who are on the OFA mailing list saying, get out of here. There was criticism that felt like that it wasn't independent enough from the White House, that there was not enough mobilization. What have you learned about what this organization is over the last 2 years?
Well, I think this organization was founded under two principles, and these were principles that our volunteers told us. The first is they wanted to support this president's agenda. That's what they told us. And for the last 14 months, that's what we've done. And because of Organizing for America's volunteers across the country, we have historic health care reform. We have financial regulatory reform. We have a host of generational pieces of legislation that our folks rightfully feel extremely proud about, and they should. The second, though, is that they wanted to keep organizing. They told us that they wanted to continue organizing locally. So that's a big part of what Vote 2010 is. We're allowing our volunteers, empowering them, giving them the tools necessary to be successful. And they're out there right now organizing for local candidates. They understand, I think, at an intimate level, why it's important to support the president's Democratic allies. Like I said, we're extremely encouraged by what we've seen up to this point. We have 4 days left, a lot of work, a lot of sleepy and tired volunteers. So if they're listening, please, or if they're watching, please stay with it 4 more days, and we'll look forward to celebrating with all of you and your viewers on November 2nd.
4 more days for you. I understand it's your birthday tomorrow. Is that correct?
It is.
You'll probably be working on your birthday.
Yes, I will.
Mitch Stewart, Executive Director of Organizing for America. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chris.
Appreciate it.